Bienvenidos. Welcome back to season three of the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Andrea Ortega, and I'm so excited to kick off the season with an incredible guest who is at the intersection of technology, education, and social impact. Three of my favorite things, right? We're joined by Willy Orozco, an advocate, educator, and change maker who has spent his career opening doors, for minoritized communities, women, first generation college students, through building sustainable education with Microsoft Philanthropies to shaping the future of educators through CSC in Miami, Willie brings a powerful perspective on what an inclusive, human-centered tech ecosystem can look like. And that's a lot of fancy words, and I can't wait to digress into what all of that means. And again, your role also in higher ed, in transforming access. I think for me, I was just at New York Tech Week and being the only Latina in the room with a bunch of chief pro officers was so surreal. And not that it didn't feel welcoming, but it's just really important to see other people that look like you in the spaces you're in. And so, really, it's for you to be working, especially I'm from Miami. I don't know if you know that, but so, it's a pot of so much diversity and being able to, be an outlet for those underrepresented professionals in tech. Super honored to have you here. And I want to know what that future of tech leadership looks like. So everybody grab your cafecito if you're driving to work and let's get to know who Willy Orozco is. Before we jump into the questions, do you want to say a little bit about you, Willy? I love it. And Willy, are you Colombian? I totally felt that. Are you Colombian?
Sí, claro, de Bogotá.
How did you teach coding too, I think. So like how does that even like how did you end up in this very niche? Because
Yes.
for people who followed also Palante nonprofits, like I also have a very niche background working in the tech for good intersection. So like how did you end up here? Like what drew you to this to being in this very niche area?
So yes, woof. That's really interesting. It wasn't a single path. Fue una combinación de muchas cosas. Starting by when I went to FIU, I went to FIU and I studied geology basically with a minor in education. So when I graduated, I actually started teaching science. And I taught science at a charter school down in Homestead, which is a zone in an area in Miami, south of Miami, where it's highly agricultural, a lot of migrant community. And of course, it was a typical situation that you hear from teachers. I was getting money out of my own pocket to pay for materials so we could do projects in the classroom. I remember just kind of like researching all the time, like what can I buy at the dollar store and what's cheaper to buy this material, this other thing. I wish ChatGPT was out there back then because it would have helped me so much. But anyways, after a year, I got recruited to go to a private school. And then that role, they also asked me to teach engineering. It was at the middle school level, so it was a very low introductory engineering class. So I had to do a lot of learning on my own. An organization that helped me a lot was CSTA, the Computer Science Teacher Association. It's a national organization. So I started getting involved with them. And then fast forward a few years, I became the chair of the computer science and engineering department at that school. It's one of the most expensive schools in Miami. And I had access to the budget. And that's when something shifted inside of me, like seeing the disparity going from a place where I had to get money out of my own pocket to pay for materials to now, how can I figure out like how to spend the money because it's a lot, right? So that kind of like shifted my philosophy on education in general. And I was like, how can we use these resources to make an impact on the community? Right. And we started doing different projects. We actually joined a community of people who have access to 3D printers. And we 3D printed a few prosthetic hands for kids. Some of them made it to Bolivia. One of them made it to England. My students were always involved. We're in Miami. It's an international place. It's a private school. So a lot of affluent people from all over the world come and go to the school. So many of the students were from those areas, and they were getting involved in the projects, and they would personally go and give their hands to the kids in those countries. So it's very fulfilling for the students. That's what I was trying to teach. We created a costume for a kid on a wheelchair through another organization that we partnered with. But I felt that like I was missing something. And then through CSTA, actually, I learned about back then the Teal's philanthropies used to have a program called Microsoft Philanthropies used to have a program called Teals. I got involved with Teals. I got hired to actually manage the South Florida area. And it was about helping high schools start their computer science programs. So numbers have been shifted a lot in the last few years on the openings of positions in the tech industry. But I did see it, and I still see it as a pathway to economic opportunity for the students, right? It's a high rewarding career. And if we can actually introduce the students as much as possible into what these opportunities are, right? That was my whole thinking back then. And I was like, okay, let's see how far we can get this program. So we started growing the program little by little. Unfortunately, corporate America priorities shift, so TLs started disappearing. So yeah, and that's what led me. I guess that job is what when I came to the realization of I can do more, I can help more, right? Even though I was no longer in the classroom, interacting with the students directly on a daily basis, I knew that because of the work that I was doing, I was impacted hundreds, if not thousands, of students at a time.
Oh my God, really, I mean, that's amazing. And I think, one of the things that, to your point, y esto creo que viene de nuestra familia, like, we're told to be lawyers or doctors, and there's like no in between. And I tell my husband all the time, I wish someone had told me to just be a computer engineer. Because it's a different lifestyle. It's both, I mean, the experiences I've had, the work-life balance is there, the the salary is there, right? Because yeah, we they work hard, they work late nights, but then they play hard too, and then they get to enjoy it because the salary ranges are so much higher than other roles, and I just, man, I kind of wish I had been told to be like an engineer or learn coding because and it's a very creative, it's always different. Technology is always changing, and there's a lot of, I think, creativity, and they're super smart. I worked with some of the best engineers, and I think they just they think differently. They get to they're very innovative, and I think that's a huge part of that world. So if anybody listening, and if you've ever thought of a career shift, like I think tech is it's obviously now, especially with Silicon Valley, and if you start getting to know that world, becoming more the trend. But I genuinely think it's a really wonderful career. Y te lo digo porque for such a long time, being Colombiana, like be a doctor or a lawyer, there's so much more out there. And then even not just like people who like actively code, like UX, UI, right? So like product managers, product designers, like people who don't have to actively code but understand technology and then get to be even more creative on top of it. Like to me, the whole world has been absolutely fascinating, and I love that intersection. And for you to kudos to you for realizing that there's a huge gap. I went to a high school that was in Miami. It's North Miami Beach. It's actually like an F school, but they had back in the day the top magnet program. It was called BEAM. It was for biomedical and environmental advanced magnet or something like that. And something that I think is really interesting about what you said, that the magnet program had the most money, the new textbooks, all of it. Meanwhile, the school was an F school, and the we all had the third floor, and it was so, like, for me, that was my first like realization of inequality, and like going there and seeing like the floors who needed the most, who needed the teachers, who needed the textbooks, who needed the exposure to things like, I mean, back then we didn't have 3D printers, but to like kind of doing it, they didn't have it. They didn't have it, and only this program of elite people who made it had it. And I think it's a little backwards. I think it should be all around, where, because maybe we have a lot of it is from family. You have people to help you with your homework, to support your academic journey from early on. I always see a world as like, man, what if we mix the school instead of separating by floors into this, like, I don't know. This whole idea of like the better the schools do, the more money they get, but like really it's the schools who need it more, or I don't know. I just wish, like, equity is such a weird thing, right? And I just kind of wish there was a better way to balance that, because I grew up seeing it firsthand. And And I think we need spaces to talk about like y really like for somebody un colombiano coming in here and being in tech and philanthropy like that's to me that's I was super fascinated by your background and so super happy to have you. On the next questions that I have, what do you think are some key ingredients for that? You mentioned a little bit, right? Funding and being there, but how do you actually make it truly inclusive in those tech education and career pipelines? What are some things that you've seen as you've coached these students or worked with these kind of communities? Like, how do you actually get them to support their journey there?
Yes, I think that's a key word, support. I've seen there is a lot of efforts. Like one of my favorite organizations, for example, is called Codar. I collaborate with them as much as possible, and their goal is to bring more women into the tech industry. The numbers right now, it's like only 30% of the professionals are women, right? Shouldn't we be 50-50, just like society is, right? And then people, of course, some people come back and say, well, but that's because women don't like technology or women don't have that mentality, like whatever. It's like they come up with all of these things, and it's like, well, we need to go back and look at how society has been set up, right? So the program stems even way farther back, right? It's because how we are as a society, right? We're a society that has always had the thought that women should stay home and take care of the kids, right? Isn't that perhaps the reason why, if you think that women are not cut to do this type of work because they don't have that mentality, that's why not what they don't like, perhaps it's not because society has brought them to believe that they cannot do it, right? I mean, I'm sure a lot of your audience has watched the movie Hidden Numbers. That's actually based on real life, right? It was women who were computational thinkers, and well, they were doing all of the calculations when NASA started, right? It was all women, a group of women. Computers came out and that took away their jobs, right? And some of them decided, hey, those computers need somebody to use them. Let me learn everything about those computers. I'll make sure that I take that role and use those computers, right? So it goes to show you that, yes, of course, we are all equal, right? Like there is no that men or women are better on doing this type of work. It's just because the society was set in a way. Perhaps he wasn't. I mean, I'm not gonna go back and talk about history, but that is the reality of it. I mean, it's if it's a Hispanic, right? I'm a male Hispanic. I'm an immigrant. Very proud to be an immigrant, by the way. I've seen it. I mean, we saw it in the history of TV, of movies where there was no immigrants before in those movies or those TVs, right? The same for different races, like there were no blacks in those movies, right? So if you're a kid and what you don't see out there is people that look like yourself that are doing that type of work, how can you believe that you can do it, right? And you tend to fall into what you normally see, right? If you're born in a very poor neighborhood, right? And perhaps with an absent parent and like your neighbors aren't the same and all of your kids, like you don't have any role models to tell you, right? Like how can you think farther, right? How can you think that you can get away from it, right? Yes, there are some people that do it, and those are very resilient people, but not everybody is as resilient as that, right? Many of us, including me, need somebody to help us or to give us an opportunity and like show us this is out there, right? This is what you can do, and this is how we can help you do it, right? So yeah, I mean it's yeah. So I think support in general. Going back to your question, I know I kind of like start rambling, but going back to your question, it's about being there and really supporting. It's not just telling them this is there. There is this program called Coder, or there is this program Girls Who Code. Like no, there is like okay, there is this program, yes, but let's see how can we enroll you? What can we do? Do you need help? Are you doing the program? Are you having any difficulties with any of it? Let me help you with that, right? Oh, by the way, I heard about this scholarship here. Let me share it with you. So it's constantly having that communication and constantly helping people. We have heard in the actual industry, once people become professional in the tech industry, there's a lot of people that end up quitting because as any job, it has its problems, right? And if you don't have the resiliency or you don't have a support program or a support group or community, right, you end up just dropping off, right? So it doesn't stop just when you introduce people into those opportunities. It has to continue.
I love that. I have so much to. This is great. One, because thank you for recognizing that, women should have the choice and see themselves in these spaces. I was a stay-at-home mom for a year. I was so depressed. That is not the job for me. Kudos to teachers who deserve to be paid more. Kudos to everybody who can, teach ABCs and colors. That is not who I am. I mean, that is just as an important job of our future, of our generation. But like, I am not that mother. I am not that Pinterest mother. I thrive as a better mother and I'm more present when I get to go to work and exercise the things I've learned and dedicated my life to. And there's also like a big movement of being, the feminism culture lied. But no, it was never about like you have to choose between your family or your career. We just want to have the option. And that option did not exist in the past, like we just want to have the option. We want to see ourselves in these kind of roles. Absolutely agree with you. Like the term computer was actually women computing in the back before it became a computer as we know it today. And to touch on your point around being an immigrant, I am a very proud immigrant. I absolutely believe that we have been translating since the day we touched, I used to translate for my parents just to order food. We had to learn English really fast, if I wanted to succeed in school. When it comes to, and going back to the question, what you said about support, I think people don't put two and two together that like, oh, but you all went to the same school, but we did not lead the same lives. You are worried about eating or, when your dad's going to get their next job from very early age, are
And
we
can
going
I
to
say
get,
something about that too?
yeah, of course.
So, when I moved to the United States, I was 16 years old. It was actually the day of my 16th birthday. And I went straight to high school and I didn't know a single word of English, right? And I was in the ESOL program. Back then, it was the BCC program, which is all of your core classes, English, math, science, and I don't remember what the other classes, they were all in English, in Spanish. If you had back then, if the school had a population large enough of people that were new to the United States and they spoke the same language, the school had the option to actually open a class for that core class in that specific language. So back then, all of my core classes were actually in Spanish, right? And because of that, we ended up kind of like being isolated from the rest of the school community, right? And that's when you start talking about opportunities. It wasn't until years after I graduated that I started learning about AP courses, about IB program, about Cambridge program, about like all of these different programs that schools offer. But I never got to hear about any of those things. Why? Because I was in my own little world with my own little group of people because I was the little group of immigrants from that corner, right? They
Oh
don't
my
speak
God.
English.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not trying to blame the school, right? It was probably they didn't even think about it, right? So, but it
hmm
happened. It happened. So, yeah.
I love that you brought that up because, and we'll probably need a whole episode just to share our immigrant journey, but like I came when I was 8. So I became much younger. But most people, what they don't understand is that that means I had to do all of this much earlier. My parents didn't help me with homework. I joke that I don't know how to write effectively in English or Spanish because I came right in that transition when you're learning to read and write. And so it wasn't until I got to college that a professor finally like sat me down and was like, this is not quality writing in English. You got to get better, And so, like, because also I think, I'm a little biased to education in Colombia. Like, you go to a private school, they're much better. I think education has a higher level
Yes.
over there. And over here, you do get praise for just turning in your homework, whether over there they expect highly quality
Yes.
work. So definitely there was that. But like, I was very blessed with parents who were very supportive, attended all of my things, but like they didn't understand why I joined band, or why I had to go to band camp because they didn't realize that to get to college you needed this like well-rounded, and I came earlier, so I did get to learn that. But to your point, for people who migrate, like that's not a part of our world. Like there's no such thing as really extracurriculars back in our countries or a part of what they grow up. Because even I learned from watching my cousins that most university spots are like you take a test And depending on the test that you land in, that spot's given to you. They don't really take into account the whole person, which we know here it's totally different. You have to have all the straight A's and then all of the extracurriculars and be like a captain and all of this just to get like the school of your choice and in the spot. So like you're constantly fighting for the next thing. And support. Like I think if you don't have people from early on who tell you, yes, you can be an astronaut, right? Like we're still hitting like the first female astronaut, like we're still being the very first in anything. So think people don't realize that like, yes, you can be anything, but can you really? How hard did someone have to work, a woman in my generation have to work to get there? And then I think you're in a really special place, Willy. For those of you who don't know, Willy is actively looking for a role. And they're gonna snatch you back up, especially by the time I air this episode. So I hope you get snatched up because, being able to understand the world, not black and white, but the gray within the technology, the way philanthropy and nonprofit works, even that in itself, and then being able to share that with the next generation, I think that's going to be key too, because now we're in AI. I don't even think I have a question on you on AI. I don't even know if my parents are using ChatGPT. I don't even know but our children are going to grow up doing that, using it, and it being a part of their day-to-day lives. Also like how do we work with immigrant communities to make sure that they're understanding that like anybody can use ChatGPT. It was made accessible, and then understanding like because even within AI, you have to learn the art of prompting, the art of ethical, and like the rules against using. It's not just like free for all. So even there's a huge disparity also like in utilizing it. But we took two questions and like ran with it. So I'm probably gonna skip to the last one if you're okay with it. And that way we can wrap up this episode. But I would definitely love to have you again because I think we can relate. My husband came here when he was 15. And so I also see the big difference in, the experience that we had in this country. And even with him, like learning English, I think for me, because I was 8, it was easier for me, but like, you guys had to really work hard at it, and I think people also sometimes forget that. But all right, in my next question, looking ahead, what's your vision for future tech and the role that it's going to play in leadership, as well as, I love this question, how do we move from like this chief borough officers ecosystem where more women, Latinos, and other representative groups thrive and lead? And you've mentioned some programs during this podcast. Maybe you could tell our audience like what does that vision look like and maybe how they can get there. What are things that they can follow on LinkedIn? Can they follow you? Can they reach out to you? Like I would love to know what that future looks like, and then how we can all put our little piece to help get it there.
Yes, definitely. So, okay, so I mean, my belief, my philosophy is always be present, always be there, always participate, be part of the room. Whether, I mean, even if you're not kind of like the leader of that room, be there, be present, be part of the community. I've tried to be as much into networking as possible, and I've been able to connect with a lot of people, learn about different opportunities, learn about different organizations. And then once you encounter those organizations that you think that they really mean something, just connect with them, talk to them. I think that the tech industry is super welcoming. If you're not aware of what's happening in South Florida, especially with the tech industry, it's just growing exponentially, and people are super, super welcome, and they're always willing to give you a hand. It's very hard that you hear somebody say no. Right. And I think when you say, I want to connect with this person, would you mind just introducing me to this other person, or maybe you know somebody else who knows that person, people will always say yes. If you are a leader, or even if you're not a leader, if you're just another participant of the society, if you're in tech, right, and you're female, you're Hispanic, try to look for organizations like tech, Code Art. Definitely participate in Code Art. Then you can look for Girls. It's a website. It's a huge organization. They provide a lot of curriculum and a lot of activities. They do the hour of code, but you can actually put your name into the database. So teachers can actually go and search for people in their area who are willing to go to the school and talk to the students. Just talk to the schools in your area, right? Ask them, hey, do you have any technology courses or not? Would you be interested in me just coming, I don't know, like once a month and talk to the students, or just once a year, right? Do you have maybe a STEM day or STEAM day? Do you have something where you celebrate technology, or maybe for Computer Science Education Week, which is the first week of December? Do you guys do anything? Would you be open to me coming in and participating, right? Just talk about your experience. How do you get to be a professional in the industry? That goes for everyone, not just Hispanics or women, for like everyone, right? Just show kids that you're there, that you made it there, and many of our paths took a lot of turns in the meantime. And that is super valuable for the students, because a lot of the students, they don't see the models out there, right? They don't see people that look like them that are doing this type of work. And then they don't believe that they can do it. Oh, I'm bad at math, right? You have no idea how many people, professionals, engineers that I have spoken to, they're like, yeah, I was bad at math too, right? But I have a support system. I had teachers, I had students that helped me. Like I spoke up and I asked for help and I was able to go through it, right? Now I'm an engineer. I'm earning over $150,000 a year, right? Or maybe now I can actually get a nomad visa, go live in Colombia most of the year, where the cost of life is way cheaper, right? But you're still earning at the level of the United States, and you're getting to know new cultures. Spain has the same. Like there is a bunch of countries that have nomad visas. So bring those experiences to the students and show them what can be possible. If you want to be more involved, definitely look for organizations like Code Art and just connect with them and tell them, what do you need? Codar has a festival every year. It's Codar Fest, where they celebrate all of the accomplishments of the students that have participated in the different programs. They have some prizes for different activities that they do, and a lot of people come in, and those could be it, right? If you have kids, go to the school where your kids are and ask them, what opportunities are you giving to your kids to learn about technology? What can I do to help you either start something or improve what you're currently offering? If you work for a large corporation, many of the large corporations, they do have incentives for you to be involved in the community. And perhaps they may want to do a little bit of investment in your local school, right? What if there was like, I don't know, like a medium-sized corporation here in Florida that said, hey, let's adopt a school, right? How many kids can you impact just because you were there and you knew the school, you knew the corporation, and you just reached out to HR and said, hey, is there any programs that we can do for my kid's school? And you never know. There's a lot of people, especially when corporations that start getting larger, you probably don't know everything that the corporation is willing to do for social impact. So just ask, be involved.
Oh my God, I love that. And now I have like
Love it.
if we take even one time a year to just go and talk to our kids' school or classroom and, do something fun about sharing our careers, like they always ask me like, what does a nonprofit consultant do? And it's like maybe I do an activity with them that's tailored to them. Like maybe it's a small group project where I get their classroom to donate to, I don't know, like you have my mind, like going ways I could teach them about what I do. And so to anybody who's parents and listening out there, like I love that. And it doesn't have to be an everyday thing. Like once a year, we reach out to the principal, we get our companies to back us up for some snacks. And like it doesn't have to be like this really big thing. It could be just something that we commit to doing with our kids to get them exposed to these type of careers. Because to your point, representation is everything. And if we had seen these things earlier on, I think our journeys would be different. And I think, and there would be more of us, nowadays, but like we get redirected based on, what our cultura does. And there's nothing wrong with being a doctor or a lawyer. It's a highly, highly, important career. But like I also think there's so much ways and whoever thinks that like, technology is not a way to give back, like it is. Like technology creates accessibility and, like it creates one of the other things I see is like, okay, well, maybe your job doesn't really give back, but like you can give back because now you have a salary that allows you to give back. Now that your bills are paid and everything, like you can become your own donor and your own person because now you have, a living wage. And that's the way I see it. Like the more money I make, for me, it's about like the more I know I'll be able to give back because I'll be able to put on the side to invest in nonprofits. You know, I remember when I joined the Leadership Council, it wasn't like, oh, I want to give back. It was like, hey, Eric, the executive director, is like, I have some time now. I can pay my bills. I feel comfortable. I can give back time now to the nonprofit because, you know, being in the space, you want to make sure that you have the time and the resources to give back. And a career in technology fills your cup and allows you with more to be able to give back in other ways. So like even if you don't have the time to do it in some of the ways you mentioned, like look up an organization that's doing some of this. You know, reach out to Willy for orgs or nonprofits doing the work and see if you can donate to them. And maybe reach out to them for access to their youth, right? There's a lot of nonprofits that work with youth. You mentioned Girls Who Code. You mentioned other orgs that exist nationally. So I love that. It's been such a pleasure, Willy, having you here. I want to thank you so much for sharing your journey, insights, and passion with us today. Your work is super inspiring and I think I'm gonna invite you back. I think there's more we need to talk about. I think I'm curious to see what your next role is because I know that wherever you'll go, you'll kill it. But you know, I'm gonna let my listeners know they can if they follow me on LinkedIn, they can connect with Willy or let me know, and I'll definitely get you in touch because you know Willy is in South Florida. He's super accessible. I actually met him through one of my previous roles, and I think you're doing, and you're gonna do great things, Willy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes. Feel free to pull all of my links in the little description of the
Yeah.
episode. Yeah, more than happy to connect with people.
Awesome. And thank you so much for the season 3 kickoff. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. If you'd like to support me, you can always buy me a cafecito on my website. And please leave us a review so that it helps to reach more change makers like you. Until next time, y gracias por estar aquí con Balance Nonprofits.